So we just found out that NetEase is planning on releasing a new hero every month and a half in Marvel Rivals. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the overall interview. We're going to be checking out the entire interview now. Okay, so the first question is, for you guys, how has the launch been? How pleased are you with the community response? Our whole team has felt the passion of the community and everyone. We would use all of that to fuel us and continue to develop great stuff for everyone. You've been pretty clear about not wanting to enforce role lock, which sets hard limits on how many class types can be in a single game, to try and create an even spread of healers, tanks, etc. Prior to release, that said, the conversation around the topic right now is really loud. If that conversation becomes loud enough, would you be willing to change your stance? Yeah, so we totally get that the community is discussing role lock and role queue. At its core, it's really about the game balance. So what we want to offer is more lineup or more team comp possibilities through our hero design and our team up mechanic. So we'll be taking a little bit more of a Marvel-inspired approach. It's all about giving the players the freedom to experiment and find their unique strategies, as we've seen in many games and streams. Post-launch, people have been exploring an indefinite amount of team compositions, and we're excited about what's coming. We believe no role queue will lead to a richer gaming experience for everyone. So that's it there, right? They've been very clear on the stance. No role queue. What they want to do here is that they want to create compelling enough heroes regardless of their role. So for example, if we take the new hero, Mr. Fantastic, I would say he's a pseudo tank, right? He's not entirely a tank, but he can get very tanky once he gets up to 100 energy and be a very decent front line. Now, he won't replace your traditional vanguards, but let's say if you don't want to run a 2-2-2 composition, Mr. Fantastic can take up a DPS slot and assist the tank in terms of displacing the enemy team or creating some sort of disruption, while at the same time securing eliminations, dealing damage, and be a beefy front line for the rest of the team. So that's what they're trying to do. They pretty much put a pseudo tank as a DPS. We've also seen a similar design with Mantis, whereby Mantis is incentivized to deal damage to refresh her heals, okay, or her heal charges. And that's the whole point as to why she can even buff herself in the first place, because if you wanted to make her a pure support, then you would only allow her to buff her allies and heal them. However, they went the extra mile of allowing Mantis to buff herself as well to incentivize her to deal some damage of her own. But yeah, that's what they want to do. In terms of gameplay, is there anything that's surprising you, anything that the player base is doing that you didn't expect? There's actually been a lot of cool stuff happening from social media we've seen. For example, Jeff is blowing up on socials. We've also seen players share epic clips of Spider-Man using his web swing to block Iron Man's ultimate. It's totally wild. Not to mention, there's the team up between Hulk and Wolverine, where they use that insane fastball special team up to take Iron Man down from the sky. Yeah, it's really amazing to see all of these clips from socials, and it really shows us that the players in the community love our game, and we're really just grateful for everything. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, if you create a great game, then you don't have to worry about players or player retention, because people will play your game. And that goes beyond gaming as well. If you create a product that's beloved by your community or your target audience, then you're going to have a pretty high customer retention rate. That's the word that they use when it comes to businesses. However, in gaming, they use player retention rate. It's the same thing. We're customers to them, just FYI. How important is game balance to you? With patch notes, how quickly do you want to put them out? Do you want to mess with metas and strong heroes that become outliers quickly, or give them time? Interesting question. After the launch, we've been keeping a close eye on the game's environment and balance. Moving forward, we will be looking at hero pick rates and win rates in different scenarios. Once we have some more detailed analysis and through thoughtful consideration, we'll definitely make necessary balance adjustments. It's all about creating a good experience for our players. It hasn't been that long since our launch, so we're going to continue to monitor everything and make sure everything feels right. So they're basically saying here is that we're just going to observe how well these heroes are performing. We don't want to make very drastic changes. People need to learn how to acclimate to the game. They need to understand how the game effectively plays or how it works first. And a month isn't necessarily a large amount of time for people to understand the full depth of the game. Maybe for some people who've sunk over 500, 600, 700 hours in the game so far. But for those for the more casual player base, they're not going to understand every specific nitty-gritty detail about how the game works until much later. And even for those hardcore players, it is still a bit early. It is still a bit early. I mean, I always want to go back to this argument where Black Panther and Wolverine were slated to be one of the worst DPS, but now they're either the best DPS in your lobbies or they are the worst. And that's just a player. That's just a player issue. Wolverine and Black Panther can really hard carry games depending on the player that's playing them, because fundamentally the way their kit works is very strong. People just didn't know how their kits worked. Anyway, what's your philosophy on? Isn't this just a repeat of the previous question? Okay, so that one's how important is balance. This one is what's their take on balancing the game. What's your philosophy on game balance? Do you think that making changes to heroes who are strong with the best players is best? Base it on what is strong in tournaments, or do you want to preserve the casual player experience? The team generally wants every kind of player to enjoy the game in their own way. So instead of just zeroing in on either tournament results or quick play, we're going to take a broader look at the overall balance data on all the heroes and all the modes. Additionally, we've also introduced a ban pick system in higher tier ranked matches and in tournaments, so this adds another layer of strategy for competitive players, giving them more choices in how they want to approach every single game. So this is actually really good that they're going to take a broader look, so it's not just competitive, it's going to be competitive, quick play, doom match, conquest, any other arcade mode, tournaments. They're going to look at how things are from a, a fisheye lens, yeah? And they're going to make adjustments based on that. Now, in terms of the ban pick system, I have seen arguments whereby people are stating that it shouldn't just be in diamond and above, it should also be in across all ranks, because it's not fun being pub stomped by a Smurf character or a Smurf player or whatever. But yeah, personally, I think that the ban pick system across ranks isn't that big of a deal. We have seen this in other games. Rainbow Six Siege just comes off the top of my head, where it doesn't matter what rank you are, that you can ban or pick heroes regardless of your rank. And it doesn't seem to affect the competitive integrity. And even if there is a specific character that is constantly banned across all ranks, that should be a sign for the developers to understand that there is something with this player and they need to investigate what is, oh, sorry, not player. There is something with this character, hero, agent, whatever you want to call it. And we need to identify what that issue is in order to reduce their ban rate and increase their pick rate. How do seasonal bonuses work? Are they meant to be on all the time? And I assume they will change next season. Okay, so now they're just going to discuss how seasonal bonuses work. Okay, so let's break down the team up mechanic first. First off, each team up involves 2 to 3 heroes, with one acting as the core team up, which is the one who received the seasonal bonuses. So when there's one core hero on the field, any other hero from that specific team up would activate the whole team up mechanic. And you really only need 2 heroes to trigger one team up, which specifically means that a team can easily activate 3 sets of team ups in one game, and that further adds a whole new layer of strategy and depth to team compositions. So on one hand, we want to encourage players to use these core heroes by giving them additional season stat bonuses, which helps to then activate more team ups potentially in one game. So we believe by doing all of this, we would have more freedom, but we let players choose the heroes they want to play. Looking ahead, as we move on to seasonal updates, we'll be introducing new heroes, and we'll also be refreshing the team-ups every season. That includes adding new team-ups, as well as breaking down and reshaping the existing ones to keep the experience dynamic and engaging for everyone. Okay, so the current team-ups are subject to change. They are planning on adding new team-ups, obviously. Those were leaked. So from what I understand is that they're trying to push the heroes that are the core heroes, right? The core heroes, such as Thor, where he gives a team-up ability to Storm and Captain America. By giving him more stat bonuses, they are hoping to make that role a bit more desirable. It may be a gateway to somebody exploring Thor and then moving on to becoming a Vanguard main. And that's initially how I sort of got into it, because nobody was really playing Vanguard. Thor is one of my favorite characters in Marvel overall. And yeah, I mean, that's what made me want to play Vanguard in general. Okay, so why did the game launch with such a disproportionate amount of duelists? Do you prefer to take a hero you want to make and decide the role after, or is the wider roster composition important? Do you plan to try and make the roles more even, or do you not think that it matters? Our choice of heroes will be very good question, by the way. Our choice of heroes will be guided by the overall gameplay experience or theme that we want to create for each season. So it'll revolve around the season, and right now at post-launch, we have 8 Vanguards and 7 Strategists at launch. The team believes that it gives the players a solid variety for tactical matchups or team composition. Having more duelists at the moment will definitely enhance the duelist experience, letting players dive a little bit deeper into that aspect. So lastly, a big shout out to our community, as we've seen a lot of feedback as we look ahead to future seasons, starting with season 1. We would definitely keep this in mind when introducing new heroes, and we would want. Okay, so there's a bit of a grammar issue here. I think it's a typing error, by the way. And we would want to make sure that everyone feels heard and excited. So this is actually very interesting. I don't think he really answered the question very much. It's kind of like a very obvious question. The game launched with a disproportionate amount of duelists because duelists are very popular. It's the most popular role. Like if you even if you look at any game which has a duelist role, that is the most popular role because we discussed it allows you to showcase your individual skill and you don't need to rely on your other team members. And you can definitely be a very self-sufficient duelist. And that's the reason why, right? But what's also interesting is that because duelists are very popular, they've also added Mr. Fantastic, and here's his picture right here. Mr. Fantastic, if you don't necessarily want to run a 2-2-2 composition, 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 supports, what you can do is probably run 1 tank, 1 Mr. Fantastic, 2 DPS, and 2 strategists. So that allows somebody who plays duelist an opportunity to play as Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic, by the way, is also a very good character. Like so far, I think he's actually a very good character because he sort of fills a niche role or a supportive role whereby he can assist the tank in front lining, especially when he goes into his inflated mode. He can mitigate a lot of damage, which is something that tanks can do. And he has interesting utility whereby he can CC enemies or CC either two enemies or a singular enemy. And that's what I feel like makes him a pseudo tank, which is nice. So they added a pseudo tank into a duelist role, which all the more empowers or all the more enforces their argument of we don't necessarily need role queue because we're creating interesting heroes that regardless of what role that you play, that there's always going to be a hero to fill or support another role. This might be a little cheeky of me, but have you spoken about the cadence players can this might be a little cheeky of me, but have you spoken about the cadence players can expect new heroes to join the game? Are you aiming for a couple a year or as many as possible? Every season will be rolling out fresh seasonal stories, new maps, and new heroes. We'll actually be breaking down each season into 2 halves. The length of one season is 3 months. And for each half of the season, we will introduce a new hero. We just eventually want to continue to enhance the experience and, keep everyone excited in our community. Now, this is the main part. This is the hook that everybody is using. This is the hook that I'm probably going to be using. I'm recording right now, so I don't know the hook that I'm going to be using on the thumbnail or the title, but I can tell you this is the hook that I'm going to be using. The fact that they're planning on releasing a new hero every month and a half, so that's about 8 heroes a year. Which is insane. So the majority of the sentiment online, and we're going to be looking at the first part of the sentiment, where people are just concerned at how they're going to be able to balance 8 heroes a year. They're either going to be released incredibly broken or incredibly underpowered. They don't believe in how capable the team is. Right now, I would say that, we don't even know yet. So just stop being very skeptical. Don't worry, let them figure it out. That's their problem, not yours. It kind of is your problem because it is going to ruin your gameplay experience. If it ruins your gameplay experience, just move on to another game. It's very simple. Now, the other argument here is where people are saying that, wow, Marvel Rivals is releasing a new hero every month and a half, whereas Overwatch only releases a new hero every 6 months. Oh my God. And then the Overwatch or the diehard Overwatch community is now arguing with the Marvel Rivals community, where they're saying, well, it's not that tough to bring an existing hero from the comics into a video game, whereas Overwatch has to create a completely new hero with a background story and has to fit the lore, and they also have to create brand new abilities for that hero. I mean, listen, it's kind of their job. It's just unfortunate for them where they're put in a position where they have to do that. Realistically, they should have concepts of heroes for the entire year already planned out from the start of the year or before the end of last year. So by the end or towards the end of last year in December, they should have had concepts for every single hero that they plan on releasing this year. It's kind of their job. Whereas in Marvel Rivals, they sort of are limited by the creative freedom that they can do to some specific characters. Like, you're not going to get Thor running around with a scythe. Thor is known for having Mjolnir. He has a very set amount of abilities that he is known to use. Sure, you can take a bit more of creative freedom in how those abilities are used, or if you want to add a new ability, sure thing. But you can't take Thor and then have him use a bazooka or something. Overwatch does have a bit more creative freedom, but that's because they're creating a brand new hero from scratch. Again, the brand new hero from scratch is more difficult, therefore it takes longer to create and develop. The concept, the work, all of that, in theory, should be done towards the end of last year, because if they're going to be launching this year, it should already be in test. It should have already been tested, and it should already be close to launch, or close to a playable state. That's what I would say. What's your philosophy on Vanguards? For you, what is the job of a tank and what makes a good Vanguard? How do you find new characters to make around that idea? So right now, our gameplay primarily focuses on the single objective modes. As a Vanguard, your primary role is to stand at the forefront of that objective, be that a capture point or a payload, and creating space for duelists and strategists in your team to set up their formations. That really sets the base stage for our two-sided combat model, where two teams are going head-to-head against each other. So from there, we also believe that Vanguards will have the strongest survivability in the game. There are many ways to express that. For example, we have Doctor Strange's magical shield, we have Groot's wood walls, we have Hulk and Venom's high mobility. This all leads to a diverse range of gameplay styles for our Vanguards, which is fundamentally a core part of our design philosophy. Since we're also a Marvel superhero game, we don't want Vanguards just to soak up damage, we also want them to contribute more to the team, so that's why we've designed some really cool mechanics to go along with them. For example, we have the famous Doctor Strange portals, we have Penny Parker's web traps and web zones, we also have Magneto's ultimate ability that actually absorbs enemy projectiles and turns them into a powerful counterattack. You know, all these mechanics enable Vanguards to create some epic moments where you truly enjoy that unparalleled superhero experience. This is a crucial part of how we approach designing our Vanguards. And lastly, when we're designing new Vanguards, we also tie in the core concept of their character IPs in the Marvel Universe, ensuring that we take all of these elements into account when designing them. So they answered the question. They didn't really answer how do you find new characters to make around that idea. Or maybe when we're designing new Vanguards, we also they answered the question pretty effectively. I mean, it doesn't really need much of an explanation. My thoughts here is that, or my question here would, or another question that I would have here is, are you planning to create more Vanguard, are you planning to create Vanguard hybrids? So you have like a pure tank and an off tank. Vanguards are also, by the way, capable of dealing quite an incredible amount of damage. Honestly, I find Vanguard to be the most enjoyable role because you have high survivability, you have decent damage, and you have, well, depending on the character that you're playing, and some interesting types of damage mitigation. I wonder if they're planning on introducing Vanguards that will also have more of a supportive role. So say you have a Vanguard that can also assist your strategist. That'd be quite interesting to see how that works out. I know that Ultron was leaked and they said that Ultron was going to be a strategist, but it would be cool to see like Ultron being a Vanguard strategist hybrid, similarly to how I was saying that Mr. Fantastic is a duelist Vanguard hybrid. Are you happy with the map variety currently in the game? Yeah, we're actually very happy about all the diversity in our maps we have right now in game, and also all the destructibility. In the future, we will also be planning to introduce even more map diversities, so stay tuned for that. And I guess that's what they meant by, so because this was before season 1, stay tuned for that. That's what they meant by the reverse destruction in Midtown, Empire of Eternal Night. Jeff the Landshark's ultimate is very large and hard to avoid. Can we expect any tweaks there? We actually have an interesting tip for how to avoid Jeff's ultimate. Make sure you keep your formation spread out as soon as you hear Jeff saying nom 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 before he unleashes the ultimate. If you want to scatter away, and don't hesitate to use your mobility skills if you need to. And if you have a teammate or two who unfortunately get swallowed by Jeff, you've also done a good job at spreading out your whole team beforehand, it means that only a few teammates will get caught. So in that case, there's still a chance to take him down and rescue your buddy before he drags them to the end of the map. It's all about that teamwork and timing. Hitting all of these specific timings will really help turn the tide. Kind of a wasted question here, to be honest. Jeff's ultimate, it's at the start, it was very tough. I would say like it like at the start, like when the game first came out, it was a very annoying ultimate. But as we're progressing, by the way, it kind of feels a bit predictable, and people are already like inherently doing this. The moment they hear that ultimate, everybody just runs away and they hide. So I don't see a lot of Jeffs getting that much value in my games currently, not as much as how much value that I saw them getting when the game first came out. Anyway, Marvel Rivals is excelling because of the fun, casual experience, but you've already started tournaments and have some esports aspirations. How will you make the game competitive in those areas, while trying to retain that fun chaos that the game is enjoying right now? We've actually been thinking about this on a broader scale, looking at the picture as a whole. We really hope that when we do the competitive modes or tournaments, they will coexist with our quick play. That's because we've been seeing a lot of other successful titles being able to pull off a competitive environment and a quick play environment both healthily at the same time. We'll be taking a lot of references from them to ultimately let both player pools thrive. And that is a breath of fresh air. And that is what I was really, I mean, they kind of already answered this over here where they say the balance. Yeah. So they kind of already said that they're going to be taking a broader look at balance. So this is a bit of a repeated question. The Jeff Ultimate was a bit of a wasted question. But the fact that they've just reinforced this messaging is very reassuring that we don't have to worry. We can sort of rest easy that they're not going to make sweeping changes just because they want a competitive scene to thrive. They want both player pools thrive. That's what it is so far. Very, very nice interview. I think we should have more conversations like this. I am actually very excited to see any content creators or any larger content creators bigger than mine. Maybe hopefully one day when we are a larger channel, we'll be able to interview the development team ourselves. But that honor will be for a larger content creator when they do get the chance. I think having very transparent conversations like this is very good for the game, very good for the community, very good for us. We know where we're going, we know where we're headed. We know what they have in mind. They know what our concerns are. So that is very, very good. Really, really, really like this. And I hope to see more of this.